Welcome to the official A Body Like Bruce YouTube channel. Today we are going to look at the books Bruce Lee read. These books have been found in the public domain, public access, and we bring them to all via this video review for educational purposes alone. No copyright infringement, was intentional. Today we are going to start a series on the books that Bruce Lee read, which in many ways helped him achieve all he said himself. Perhaps it can also do the same for you in your chosen genre or particular field that you want to be the best of the best at or in. First, you must listen to what is being said within those audiobooks. Then take the portions that best resonate within you, you can relate to, you can use them to create that ideal you, that new ideal you, that fits your chosen field, be it in writing, creating, videos, video content or other. It's whatever you feel that you have that talent, that natural expertise in, you can develop and become the best of the best at that or in that particular field. Then you must take action. This is very important. You must take action, working on it, on all that information that resonates within you, until you have perfected the suggested within the audiobook, until it becomes a natural part of you, your life character, your life or your character, your traits. And then you don't have to think about how you'll do it. You just instinctively, habitually do it daily, day after day. It's not a routine or a method, it's a habit. It becomes a habit and you do it habitually, daily, day after day. We found this website, the Libraries of Famous Men, Bruce Lee. When you picture Bruce Lee, what do you see? Probably an explosive series of kicks, punches and kung fu moves that could take out an entire gang of bad guys. What you likely don't picture is a man quietly reading a philosophy book while a household is in chaos around him. Kids yelling and playing, door slamming, adults conversing. And yet that version of Bruce Lee is just as true as the dynamic, high energy version. Lee was in fact a bibliophile, ultimately collecting a library of over 2,000 titles. This includes books in obvious categories like martial arts, boxing and fencing, but also not so obvious genres like philosophy, both Eastern and Western, psychology and classic American self-help. Now let's take a look at the reading life of Bruce Lee, followed by some titles he's known to have read, enjoyed and learned from. The reading life of Bruce Lee, and there he is pictured reading a book on Chinese philosophy. From nearly the moment of his birth in 1940, Bruce was a fury of energy as a youngster. That's why they nicknamed him Never Sit Still. And yet there was one thing that could calm him down and hold his attention for hours on end: comic books, especially of the kung fu variety. From there he graduated into reading Chinese wuxia, what biographer Matthew Polly calls sword and sorcery martial arts novels. His spare time was consumed with reading and frequenting bookstores. Before kung fu took hold of his life, he even dreamed of owning a used bookstore himself. Even though he had a great relationship with books, he was a pretty terrible student at school. Matthew Polly, notes that he was a particularly poor student, one of the worst in his class, even getting expelled once. Like many notable men throughout history, an aptitude for reading did not mean an excellence or even an interest in compulsory schooling. It was during college, as is the case for many of us, that Lee's mind was opened up to new ideas and subjects. Even though he didn't graduate, Lee took classes in philosophy and psychology that particularly piqued his interests. Neither of those were his major, which was drama, but he interestingly later claimed that he studied philosophy in school. He would not only read, but copiously take notes, add neat underlining, sometimes even using a ruler, and marginalia, He writes things in the margin and transcribes his favourite passages into notebooks. He was not a mere consumer of texts, but actively engaged and wrestled with new ideas, letting the great conversation shape his own philosophy and thinking. After college, reading became part of his regular daily routine. He never held a true 9-to-5 job, so his days were pretty free to be whatever he made them. In the mornings, he'd work out running and doing a certain number of kicks, jabs, punches, etc. The afternoons were reserved for either reading or making social calls, and in the evening he'd spend time with his family, lift weights a few times a week, or continue his reading. He cultivated both mind and body every single day. While he read broadly his whole life, there were periods of time where he dove deeply into a single topic, looking to achieve mastery, gain inspiration, and come up with new ideas. When developing his signature kung fu style, called Chi Kung Do, he devoured not only martial arts titles, but also hordes of fencing and boxing theory, because his brother was actually a fencer, combining ideas from multiple disciplines. That would be his brother Robert. Like all innovations, his kung fu was not born spontaneously from his head, but through an amalgamation of ideas from the course of physical exercise and self-defense history. Another time he did a deep dive was after he had been rebuffed by Steve McQueen on a kung fu movie project. Lee had an idea for a plot, but McQueen couldn't commit to starring because he didn't want anyone riding on his coattails, a classic move from the famously vain and self-centered actor. Lee was furious and became determined to make his own destiny rather than rely on others to help him out. To that end, he delved into the classics of self-help, putting it to practice Napoleon Hill's advice to write down a specific goal and recite it out loud day and night. From then on, he would seek to make his own projects come to fruition, and be in full control of their development. Yet another instance of this is when he was laid up in bed due to a back injury sustained during one of his morning workouts. Given Lee's famous energy, he was of course miserable being stuck in bed. He needed something to at least keep his inner self active, so he read the entire works of Indian mystic and philosopher Jiddu Krishnamurti, which at the time was probably 30 plus books. In addition to books, Lee subscribed to the major fitness magazines of the day, becoming an innovator in that arena as well, and working weightlifting into his regimen at a time where that was actually considered an unsafe and counterproductive practice. If you have any doubt about the influence of books and reading on Bruce's life, look no further than his headstone in Seattle, part of which is an open book carved from marble or his gravestone. As his wife Linda said, Bruce carried a book with him wherever he went. While he'll always be rightly known mostly for his martial arts, innovation and movie TV projects, his reading was the foundation that shaped his remarkable life and kept him grounded and true to his deepest values. Let's now take a look at some of the titles and authors that influenced Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee's reading list. While Bruce's library contained thousands of volumes, they were primarily centered in a handful of genres: philosophy, the vast majority, martial arts and other fighting disciplines, and self-help. Below is but a sampling, it's only a sampling, of Bruce's favourite authors and most interesting titles. We actually found, looking at this photo at the top here, quite by accident one day, that around here somewhere he had a book on Islam. Yet he was not religiously inclined, or he denied believing in a God. He said, I think not. So he may have been an atheist. He may just not have bothered with it, right? He didn't like put it down or anything like that. He just never took God on board, right? So here's these book titles, these books. Western Philosophy, Summa Theologica by St. Thomas Aquinas. It's quite extensive. An Inquiry Concerning Human Understanding by David Hume. Meditations on First Philosophy by Rene Descartes. The Undiscovered Self by Carl Jung. On Becoming a Person by Carl Rogers. The works of Bertrand Russell. The works of Plato. It's quite a massive volume, 20 to 30 books of that. Art of Worldly Wisdom by Baltasar Gracian. Hero with a Thousand Faces by Joseph Campbell and other Campbell titles. Ethics by Benedictus Spinoza. Maxims and Reflections by Johann Wolfgang van Goethe. Eastern Philosophy, the works of Judy Krishnamurti, who Matthew Polly, the author, notes was one of his more important influences. Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu, The Way of Chuang Tzu, The Book of Five Rings by Miyamoto Musashi, the works of Alan Watts, The Analects of Confucius, Art of War by Sun Tzu, Bushido, The Soul of the Samurai, Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse and many other Hesse titles, Buddhism by Christmas Humphreys, and dozens of other Buddhism-related titles. The Chinese Classics compiled by James Legge, all 5 volumes. Living Zen by Robert Linsen and many other Zen-related titles. Martial Arts Fencing Boxing, On Fencing by Aldo Nadi, plus at least 60 other books on fencing and fencing theory. Aikido, The Art of Self-Defense by Koichi Tohei, Advanced Karate by Masoyama, and many other Oyama titles. That's the Japanese master who took on a bull and he punched it a couple of times apparently, and then they just basically stabbed it to death or something like that. He didn't actually kill it with one blow or that sort of stuff, as far as we know. A Beginner's Book of Gymnastics by Barry Johnson, Championship Fighting by Jack Dempsey, he was one of the top boxers in his day. Book of Boxing and Bodybuilding by Rocky Marciano, another one. How to Box by Joe Louis, is another top boxer in his day. US Army Boxing Manual, Efficiency of Human Movement by Marion Ruth Brewer, Physiology of Exercise by Lawrence Morehouse, Wing Chun by James Lee, one of his students. Acupuncture, The Ancient Chinese Art of Healing by Felix Mann. Esquire's The Art of Keeping Fit, must be a magazine, Esquire. Combat Training of the Individual Soldier by the US Army. Modern Bodybuilding by Oscar Heidenstamp. Yeah, he did enlist for the army, but he had some problems, so he failed the test, the entry test or something like that. Modern Bodybuilding by Oscar Heidenstamp. American Self-Help, The Amazing Results of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale, and many other Peale titles. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Dynamic Thinking by Melvin Powers. The Magic of Thinking Big by David Schwartz. As a Man Thinketh by James Allen, and that's the one we're going to cover today, or bring to you today. The Success System That Never Fails by Clement Stone. How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. How I Raised Myself from Failure to Success in Selling by Frank Bettger. And Miscellaneous. Elements of Style by Strunk and White. Playboy's Party Jokes and More Playboy's Party Jokes. And this is where he got his humour from, right? Part of his humour, because he was a very humorous person and liked to play pranks, apparently. The Red Badge of Courage by Stephen Crane, one of the few novels. That's a great movie, you should watch that movie. I think John Wayne was in that one. Big John Wayne. The Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis, who did the Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. The Story of Civilization by Will Durant, all 11 volumes. Must be a hell of a lot of volumes, though. The Viking Book of Aphorisms and the works of Shakespeare, To Be or Not to Be. It's just a tale told by so. And here's a interview with Matthew Polly about Bruce Lee's life that you can go to this website. We'll leave the link below this video and check it out. It's an hour and 7 minutes long. And there's the sources. This particular author, writer of this website. Bruce Lee, A Life by Matthew Polly. The Bruce Lee podcast, co-hosted by his daughter Shannon. House of Bruce Lee website, and so forth. So we are going to jump to that particular audio book, As a Man Thinketh, by James Allen, published 2008, and it's in public domain. There's the icons to prove it. It's a LibriVox recording as a Man Thinketh by James Allen, read by Mark Corley. Allen's book illustrates the use of the power of thought to increase personal capabilities. Although he never achieved great fame or wealth, his works continued to influence people around the world, including the New Thought movement. Allen's most famous book, As a Man Thinketh, was published in 1902. It is now considered a classic self-help book. Its underlying premise is that noble thoughts make a noble person, while lowly thoughts make a miserable person. And that's a summary from Wikipedia. For further information, including links, etc., you can go to LibriVox.org. They have some very interesting books. We'll probably bring most of those, especially those ones that Bruce Lee used, those related to Bruce Lee, and they're all in the public domain, public access, so there shouldn't be any copyright problems there. So let's begin.
Foreword of As a Man Thinketh. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. Recording by Mark Cawley. Foreword. This little volume, the result of meditation and experience, is not intended as an exhaustive treatise on the much written upon subject of the power of thought. It is suggestive rather than explanatory, its object being to stimulate men and women to the discovery and perception of the truth that they themselves are makers of themselves, by virtue of the thoughts which they choose and encourage. That mind is the master and weaver, both of the inner garment of character and the outer garment of circumstance, and that, as they may have hitherto woven in ignorance and pain, they may now weave in enlightenment and happiness. James Allen. End of foreword. Chapter 1 of As a Man Thinketh. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. This recording by Mark Cawley. Chapter 1. Thought and Character. The aphorism, As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he, not only embraces the whole of man's being, but is so comprehensive as to reach out to every condition and circumstance of his life. A man is literally what he thinks, his character being the complete sum of all his thoughts. As the plant springs from, and could not be without, the seed, so every act of a man springs from the hidden seeds of his thought, and could not have appeared without them. This applies equally to those acts called spontaneous and unpremeditated, as to those which are deliberately executed. Act is the blossom of thought, and joy and suffering are its fruits. Thus does a man garner in the sweet and bitter fruitage of his own husbandry. Thought in the mind hath made us. What we are, by thought we wrought and built. If a man's mind hath evil thoughts, pain comes on him as comes the wheel the ox behind. If one endure in purity of thought, joy follows him as his own shadow, sure. Man is a growth by law, and not a creation by artifice, and cause and effect is as absolute and undeviating in the hidden realm of thought as in the world of visible and material things. A noble and godlike character is not a thing of favor or chance, but is the natural result of continued effort in right thinking, the effect of long-cherished association with godlike thoughts. An ignoble and bestial character, by the same process, is the result of the continued harboring of groveling thoughts. Man is made or unmade by himself. In the armory of thought, he forges the weapons by which he destroys himself. He also fashions the tools with which he builds for himself heavenly mansions of joy and strength and peace. By the right choice and true application of thought, man ascends to the divine perfection. By the abuse and wrong application of thought, he descends below the level of beast. Between these two extremes are all of the grades of character, and man is their maker and master. Of all the beautiful truths pertaining to the soul which have been restored and brought to light in this age, none is more gladdening or fruitful of divine promise and confidence than this, that man is the master of thought, the molder of character, and the maker and shaper of condition, environment, and destiny. As a being of power, intelligence, and love, and the lord of his own thoughts, man holds the key to every situation, and contains within himself that transforming and regenerative agency by which he may make himself what he wills. Man is always the master, even in his weakest and most abandoned state. But in his weakness and degradation, He is the foolish master who misgoverns his household. When he begins to reflect upon his condition, and to search diligently for the law upon which his being is established, he then becomes the wise master, directing his energies with intelligence, and fashioning his thoughts to fruitful issues. Such is the conscious master, and man can only thus become by discovering within himself the laws of thought, which discovery is totally a matter of application, self-analysis, and experience. Only by much searching and mining are gold and diamonds obtained, and man can find every truth connected with his being if he will dig deep into the mine of his soul. And that he is the maker of his character, the molder of his life, and the builder of his destiny, he may unerringly prove, if he will watch, control, and alter his thoughts, tracing their effects upon himself, upon others, and upon his life and circumstances. If he will link cause and effect by patient practice and investigation, utilizing his every experience, even to the most trivial, as a means of obtaining that knowledge of himself. In this direction, as in no other, is the law absolute that, he that seeketh findeth, and to him that knocketh it shall be opened. For only by patience, practice, and ceaseless importunity can a man enter the door of the temple of knowledge. End of Chapter 1, Thought and Character. Chapter 3 of As a Man Thinketh. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. Recording by Mark Colley. Chapter 3. Effect of Thought on Health and the Body. The body is the servant of the mind. It obeys the operations of the mind, whether they be deliberately chosen or automatically expressed. At the bidding of unlawful thoughts, the body sinks rapidly into disease and decay. At the command of glad and beautiful thoughts, it becomes clothed with youthfulness and beauty. Disease and health, like circumstances, are rooted in thought. Sickly thoughts will express themselves through a sickly body. Thoughts of fear have been known to kill a man as speedily as a bullet, and they are continually killing thousands of people just as surely, though less rapidly. The people who live in fear of disease are the people who get it. Anxiety quickly demoralizes the whole body. Chapter 4 of As a Man Thinketh. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. Recording by Mark Colley. Chapter 4. Thought and Purpose. Until thought is linked with purpose, there is no intelligent accomplishment. With the majority, the bark of thought is allowed to drift upon the ocean of life. Aimlessness is a vice, and such drifting must not continue for him who would steer clear of catastrophe and destruction. They who have no central purpose in their life fall an easy prey to petty worries, fears, troubles, and self-pityings, all of which are indications of weakness, which lead, just as surely as deliberately planned sins, though by a different route, to failure, unhappiness, and loss. For weakness cannot persist in a power-evolving universe. Chapter 5 of As a Man Thinketh. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. Recording by Mark Colley. Chapter 5. The Thought Factor in Achievement. All that a man achieves and all that he fails to achieve is the direct result of his own thoughts. In a justly ordered universe, where loss of equipoise would mean total destruction, individual responsibility must be absolute. A man's weakness and strength, purity and impurity, are his own and not another man's. They are brought about by himself. and not by another, and they can only be altered by himself, never by another. His condition is also his own, and not another man's. His suffering and his happiness are evolved from within. As he thinks, so he is. As he continues to think, so he remains. A strong man cannot help a weaker unless the weaker is willing to be helped, and even then the weak man must become strong of himself. He must, by his own efforts, develop the strength which he admires in another. None but himself can alter his condition. It has been usual for men to think and to say, "Many men are slaves because one is an oppressor. Let us hate the oppressor." Now, however, there is among an increasing few a tendency to reverse this judgment. Chapter 6 of As a Man Thinketh. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. Recording by Mark Colley. Chapter 6. Visions and Ideals. The dreamers are the saviors of the world. As the visible world is sustained by the invisible, so men, through all their trials and sins and sordid vocations, are nourished by the beautiful visions of their solitary dreamers. Humanity cannot forget its dreamers. It cannot let their ideals fade and die. It lives in them. It knows them in the realities which it shall one day see and know. Composer, sculptor, painter, poet, prophet, sage, these are the makers of the afterworld, the architects of heaven. The world is beautiful because they have lived. Without them, laboring humanity would perish. He who cherishes a beautiful vision, a lofty ideal in his heart, will one day realize it. Columbus cherished a vision of another world, and he discovered it. Copernicus fostered the vision of multiplicity of worlds in a wider universe, and he revealed it. Buddha beheld the vision of a spiritual world of stainless beauty and perfect peace, and he entered into it. Cherish your visions. Cherish your ideals. Cherish the music that stirs in your heart, the beauty that forms in your mind, the loveliness that drapes your purest thoughts. For out of them will grow all delightful conditions, all heavenly environment. Of these, if you but remain true to them, your world will, at last, be built. Chapter 7 of As a Man Thinketh. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. Recording by Mark Colley. Chapter 7. Serenity. Calmness of mind is one of the beautiful jewels of wisdom. It is the result of long and patient effort and self-control. Its presence is an indication of ripened experience, and of a more than ordinary knowledge of the laws and operations of thought. A man becomes calm in the measure that he understands himself as a thought-evolved being, for such knowledge necessitates the understanding of others as the result of thought. As he develops a right understanding and sees more and more clearly the internal relations of things by the action of cause and effect, he ceases to fuss and fume and worry and grieve, and remains poised, steadfast, serene. The calm man, having learned how to govern himself, knows how to adapt himself to others, and they, in turn, reverence his spiritual strength, and feel that they can learn of him and rely upon him. The more tranquil a man becomes, the greater is his success, his influence, his power for good. Even the ordinary trader will find his business prosperity increase as he develops a greater self-control and equanimity, for people will always prefer to deal with a man whose demeanor is strongly equable. The strong, calm man is always loved and revered, He is like a shade-giving tree in a thirsty land, or a sheltering rock in a storm. Who does not love a tranquil heart, a sweet-tempered, balanced life? It does not matter whether it rains or shines, or what changes come to those possessing these blessings, for they are always sweet, serene, and calm. That exquisite poise of character which we call serenity is the last lesson of culture. It is the flowering of life, the fruitage of the soul. It is precious as wisdom, more to be desired than gold, yea, than even fine gold. How insignificant mere money-seeking looks in comparison with a serene life, a life that dwells in the ocean of truth, beneath the waves, beyond the reach of tempests, in the eternal calm. How many people we know who sour their lives, who ruin all that is sweet and beautiful by explosive tempers, who destroy their poise of character and make bad blood. It is a question whether the great majority of people do not ruin their lives and mar their happiness by lack of self-control. How few people we meet in life who are well balanced, who have their exquisite poise which is characteristic of the finished character. Yes, humanity surges with uncontrolled passion, is tumultuous with ungoverned grief, is blown away by anxiety and doubt. Only the wise man, only he whose thoughts are controlled and purified, makes the winds and the storms of the soul obey him. Tempest-tossed souls, wherever ye may be, under whatsoever conditions ye may live, know this: in the ocean of life the isles of blessedness are smiling, and the sunny shore of your ideal awaits your coming. Keep your hand firmly upon the helm of thought. In the bark of your soul reclines the commanding master. He does but sleep. Wake him. Self-control is strength. Right thought is mastery. Calmness is power. Say unto your heart, peace, be still. End of chapter 7, Serenity. End of As a Man Thinketh by James Allen.
So there is a taste of As a Man Thinketh by author James Allen. If you like this audio, you think it may help you as it did Bruce Lee in your particular chosen genre or field that you want to be the best at the best in or at, or an expert in that field, then we recommend you click on the link that we provide below this video to obtain and listen to the whole book. You could possibly download it. We believe that's an opportunity, an option there you can do. And if you liked this particular video, like it, subscribe to us, add your comments below the video, and then go share this with all your family, friends and others who may also want to succeed in their particular chosen genre, field of expertise, etc.